Of course. I mean, the way we were ejected from the playoffs so quickly, it never leaves a good taste. However, I do like the idea that the guys are really getting a rest this offseason moving into this next year. I think that'll benefit us. But like I said, whenever the season ends abruptly like that, you always want to get back after it as quickly as you possibly can. Right now, we're in a process of really, I think, going through a really good offseason regarding the planning. The cooperation from the front office to the coaching staff, et cetera, although we have some new coaches, to really set this thing up going into camp. We have a lot of good ideas. So that's been a big part of the conversation since the season's been over. Theo, Jed, and I. Then you come into here, and then I've talked to a lot of players going into this particular moment. So we're all excited about it, but being ejected that quickly is never fun.
So how did you initially take Theo and the front office coming to you and saying, we want more from everybody, including you, what they need, a different dynamic from you? How did you absorb that and then finally...
Easily. I mean, I expect more of myself also. It's not just somebody else bringing that to your attention. First of all, I do want to say that I think a lot of our guys did do well last year. It wasn't a horrible season by any means, so you just can't look at 95 wins and totally flush it down the toilet. But when you get ejected that quickly, you're going to look more deeply. How do you make next season better, and how do you avoid that from happening again? So that's where we're at right now, and I like it. I actually like it. I love challenges, as you well know. I've already been writing different items down going into camp. And like I said, probably to this point, the 11th, I've probably had more conversations via text or actual phone calls with guys than I've had in the past, in spite of being moving around a whole lot. So it's just what you're supposed to do. It's not like it's anything new. It should not be a surprise when you have high expectations like we do and you don't meet them. You got to do something about it. And so, like I said, we've had great conversation, and the planning's been really good.
How might your day-to-day life during the season?
Well, not hopefully. I guess I'm not going to get to talk to you guys as long. I do have a tendency to get long-winded. I admit it. No, a part of the plan is going to be to get out a little bit more often on the field, which I love. I mean, this is not like... Part of these past couple of years for me is I thought it's really important that I did spend a lot of time with you guys in regards to setting up the program, what we're doing there, answering your questions, which I'll continue to do. However, with all the new coaches this year and still a lot of young players being developed, I think it's more important that I get more involved on the field a little bit more often. Now, it's not going to be a dramatic difference. I don't want to paint that kind of a picture. But my roots are to be on the field. My roots are I do like to coach, and there's a distinct difference between managing and coaching, like you all know. So having this opportunity to get back out on the field more in a coaching role a little bit more often, I'm looking forward to it.
How different is it from your previous role you've been managing? How different do you expect it to be?
Minimally. I mean, honestly, you guys see me every day. The difference would be that I want to get out. You see me in spring training. I get involved in a lot of the drills in camp. During the season, I'll just maybe make this a little bit shorter and get outside during the batting practice and make sure I walk around a little bit and talk to the guys a little bit more often. But I don't think you're going to see visually a dramatic change. I don't want to paint like the wrong picture at all. My teeth were cut in development. I am a developmental guy. I've already mentioned it a couple times today. We need to get a lot of our young players. I would say primarily, obviously, the challenge is going to be offensively this year. Last year we played pretty good defense. We ran the bases well. We overall pitched pretty well. We have to get more offensive. So and that's pretty much what I majored in as a minor league coach. So I want to get more involved in that a little bit, but not to the point of interference. I do believe and still believe in empowering coaching staffs and staying out of their way. And I'll continue to do that. But I just feel it's necessary that I just get out there a little bit more often.
Coaching staff, these are new guys, obviously, faces. How important is that time to give guys some time and
No, of course. Continuity in a coaching staff, of course, selfishly from my perspective, makes it easier for me. But it's all about the players. I mean, when players are around and coached by guys that they have trust and confidence in, obviously they have that trust and confidence. And then when you speak to them, they take it more to heart and has a much better chance, I think, of being implemented and then working. So I think I know our players, alike the guys coming in. I think it's going to be an easy transition, not a difficult one. So all that stuff, I think, is going to be kind of seamless, actually. However, like for Tommy, for instance, Tommy's not done this. And pitching coach in the dugout, I've already talked to him about this, because he and I communicated a lot regardless. The difference is going to be in-game communication and how you go about that. He's got to get used to. I mean, I get kind of quick in the dugout, so having him thinking quickly and understanding me in the dugout is going to be important. We'll get through that within the first 2 weeks, I think. But those are the kind of nuance. The other part is I'm really into coaching the coaches. We talk about the players. I've done in the past a pretty regular bi-monthly meeting with coaches. I like to coach the coaches, and I think last year I probably did it monthly, not bi-monthly, but with the young coaches, that's something also that I think is going to be important to get back into that. Best way I could describe it, I'm pretty much putting my minor league hat back on, which I really love to do. The developmental component, the instructional league component, try to challenge myself on that level. And again, kind of fun to think about it.
Joe, what do you think, now that you've had some time to digest it, happened offensively? And let me preface that with also the idea that you moved on from Mealy, you said publicly this for one guy and one guy only, and now you've moved on from him. So obviously there's a lot there to digest. What do you think went on?
Well, for a lot of guys, there's a couple that really got off well. I mean, Albert got off well early on, obviously, maybe struggled later on. But more specifically, we just got to get Kyle to the consistent level that we think that he's capable of, and happy, of course, also. Jason did better last year, also maybe regressed a bit. It's just a communication thing. I mean, quite frankly, it's just when I speak to you and how I say something to you as an instructor, how well do you take that and understand that? I've always been into the phrase "in other words." And listen, Chili's outstanding. He just got, and listen, I'm a big chili guy. Don't get me wrong here. But you're always seeking for the "in other words" method that makes sense to you. So whether it was John or Chili and now it's Poach and Trammell, I mean, this is all us seeking the right message in a method that you understand perfectly. So maybe going back to people that you've been around before might unlodge something or make it somewhat easier or connect. The connection becomes easier. So listen, it's hitting's difficult. It's not just us. If you look around the industry, a lot of young hitters did struggle last year. There's one part of our game and that is hitting. To me, the offensive players have a great disadvantage based on most of the analytics, most of the stuff out there, most of the video study really helps and aids pitching and defense and does very little for hitters. I stand by that. I believe that. Hitting is a reactive, whereas the pitching and defense is proactive. So hitters have to, there's a lot more to absorb when you're only in the league a couple years, and whereas Schwarber missed some time, Happy's, Ian's still pretty young at this also. Albert, same thing. They're still working on the cachet of at-bats. Patience. I mean, that's where I'm at with this whole thing. There is some technique that I think that's applicable to make these guys better, but I think also patience is required to permit these guys to get to the level of their competency. This is where I'm at with all this. So conversationally, I've already talked to Poach and Trammell and talked about specifics about what I think and how we're definitely absolutely on the same page. So that's where we got to go with these guys. That's the next level of our success. I think a lot of it's going to be commanded by how well we command the strike zone, how well we attack the baseball, how well we utilize the whole field, move the ball in situations. That's what we got to get to.
How do you feel about becoming a free agent manager going into the...
I've been there before. No, it's all good. Theo and I have had some really good conversations. I totally understand where he's coming from. I am not offended. I don't feel badly about it. I get it. I'm excited. I'm really excited about all this. If you have a lot of self-confidence, things like that should not really bother you, and I do. I'm going to do my job like you've always seen me do my job. I might alter it a little bit regarding, like I said, getting out on the field a little bit more often, but what we've done over the last 4 years, I feel pretty good about, feel strongly about, and I think you're going to see that trend continue. The whole objective now, and Theo wanted to really put the emphasis on us and winning, and I definitely don't want the emphasis on me. So we want to get beyond all this. I am very happy with my stature, my status. The Cubs have taken extremely good care of me and my family to the point where I could never repay them enough. So regardless of your label, attachment, your moniker right now, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do the same job. And I feel very confident moving forward that I'm going to be a big part of the Cub organization.
We'll have a choice as well.
Yeah, of course I will. And let's just win the World Series and see how that all plays out. You know, I love the city of Chicago. I love the fans. I mean that sincerely. You've heard me say this all the time. Our interaction's spectacular. To be able to report to work at Wrigley Field daily, I consider an honor. And again, my whole life has changed over these last 4 years based on this opportunity. So there's no ill will. Just and furthermore, the concept that Theo and I have any kind of disengagement or lack of philosophical sameness is untrue. And we have great conversations, and we're definitely almost 100% on the same page all the time. It's a great conversation. So when you hear things like that, and I'm not going to sit here and defend myself because I think that's a very boring method when you have to defend yourself against something like that, just know that we are on the same page and philosophically really aligned well. So when I have to answer those questions to my mom, that makes it more difficult. When Beanie hears that stuff, that's what bums me out a little bit, but otherwise it's all good.
You said that you want to stay in Chicago. Do you expect that this will work out in 2020? You'll be the manager of the Cubs?
I'd like to believe so. Absolutely. That's my plan. Again, how could you not love that opportunity or that gig? The gig's the best. My players, the people I work with, I cannot ask for more. It's impossible. Facilities, if you need something, you get it the next day or the next week. It's an incredible situation. I think it's the best in the major leagues, and I've often talked about Wrigley being the best professional facility in all the world, and I mean that sincerely. So for me, of course, I want to be able to maintain this method. And I do believe that'll happen.
Joe, when you look around your division, you know, the Brewers got to the other side of their rebuild pretty quick.
Yep.
The Cardinals added Goldschmidt, the Pirates.
Yeah, I don't like the Diamondbacks right now at all. I don't. I really don't.
You know, and the Pirates finish up with 500, and now the Reds have totally changed their stuff. How fierce has the division gotten?
Well, I've been saying it all year. I mean, I think we have the best division in baseball. I really do. Team for team, I think we're the best because of the ascension of these other groups. Playing the Cardinals is no fun again, and the Pirates continue to get better. They've made some really good deals. Milwaukee showed their mettle last year, and I'm a Cincinnati guy. I know we've had decent success against them, but they've had a lot of good young players come through the door. I've seen that recently too. Our division is going to be very difficult this year. You got to win your division overall. You got to build up some spread there, and it's not going away. I mean, I think, you know, I've argued this last year. I think there's more parity in the big leagues right now, and I'm seeing it. I'm talking about our division, but the ascension of the Braves is an example. You see what the Mets are going to do, the Phillies. The whole thing's getting a little bit tougher. NL West, I really appreciate their pitching out there a lot. So the overall, it's not an easy thing to do. And that's the point, too. When you win 90 or 90-plus games, winning just one Major League Baseball game, pretty difficult to do. It's really difficult to do. So, again, with all the negative stream that's attached to the fact that we had a pretty good season last year but not get deeply into the playoffs, there's still a lot to love about our group, which I do. And I'm very proud of what we've done over the last couple of years.
Joe, you had mentioned you don't much of that to the Diamondbacks. How do you think Goldschmidt improves the Cardinals?
Oh. Did you ever see him play against us? Against everybody. Well, everybody looks at his hitting, but this guy's a really good defender, and he's a very good base runner, too. I have a total appreciation for this guy's game. Well, you put him in the lineup, and that makes them all better. I mean, Ozuna was another guy that like coming in our division. Carpenter had a great year last year. Bader's ascending right now also. They got a lot of, they're very offensive, and they got young pitching now. They've gotten really good. And he's kind of like, when he sachets into that clubhouse the first day and everybody sees him walking in there, they all become better. So that was a great deal, I thought. I thought that definitely makes them much more difficult to beat next year.
Joe, you've always had kind of a libertarian view on things. What do you think of the potential of shifts being legislated, eliminated, or
Yeah.
outlawed?
That's the one. I've talked about. I really want to be more acquiescent regarding different change. I'm primarily talking about a pitch clock. I'd be more amenable to something like that. Shifting changes. I'm still not on board with the fact that you would eliminate that, legislate no shifting. I still contend if there's a part of the game that we don't like, that we want to make better or change, to really focus on that in the minor leagues. Those are our next big league players. You could easily identify the heavy pull left-handed hitter that's constantly rolling over ground balls. And you know by the time he gets up there with all analytics that he's going to be in trouble. Really work on him learning how to bunt on occasion, hit the ball on the ground to the shortstop. I think that's where it needs to begin. It's more of a technical or technique-driven kind of a situation to adjust. Having said that, to get your guys that have been in the big leagues for 4, 5, or 7 years to change here is almost impossible. And when you ask them to do that, it looks easy. Sitting up top, the game looks slower. It looks easier, but I promise you, standing sideways at home plate at 95 and to try to do something that you're totally uncomfortable with is very hard to do. So my answer is no. I would not legislate against the shift. The shift should be organically maneuvered. But if you really want your hitters to be more of a liberal arts method of hitting, work on that in the minor leagues. In the minor leagues for years, if the guy's big and left-handed, he never bunted in a minor league game, never. And he never tried to say hit and run. You never did that with him. Those are the kind of things that may have to be nurtured there so that the shift becomes more moot and not such a big issue.
Joe,
I'm just the libertarian perspective. Yeah, I see both sides, but I'm so anti-legislation, as you well know.
Joe, back to your
Yeah.
team a little bit.
Yeah.
The front office, as recently as yesterday, sort of intimated there was maybe a little bit lack of leadership in at least one quality. And you mentioned
Sure.
Ross a couple times.
Yeah.
I assume that's maybe calling out teammates. I don't know. But did you see that as you look back at it? Is it an edge you need to get back
That's something I'd like to have every year. If you look at a couple years ago when the Royals got really good, I've seen Raul Ibanez walking around the clubhouse, the impact he had in that dugout that year with them. Houston added a couple bets in their locker room. Catcher. McCann, of course. Yeah, exactly. They made a huge difference down there. I mean, this is something that is very difficult to analytically prescribe regarding how important this is. It's one of the most important things you could possibly do to get that right kind of mix in your clubhouse where, as a manager, you should not be privy to a lot of the trivial conversations that occur. And if I am, that means I got a stool pigeon. I don't want one. So if you're this veteran leader and you hear this really inane conversation going on that you know is counterproductive, and if you do not intervene, then you really are not doing your job as a veteran player, as a leader in the clubhouse. And that's why, so people would say, well, why doesn't a manager? Of course you're the leader. You're the overall leader of the group, but there's certain things you are not privy to, and you shouldn't be. And that's where this guy or these guys really make a difference in the fabric. David was unusual because David would grab guys walking off the field after a play. And I would be entertained in my corner watching this whole thing unfold. And then I would address it afterwards. But there's nothing wrong with that. And I know that some of the guys were afraid to come in the dugout. And still that's okay because they know David was on his side. So, yes, we want that. I would say that every team out here wants that particular guy, and they're hard to find.
And would the conclusion be Zobrist, Hayward, Rizzo aren't necessarily those edgy type of guys?
No, they're more conversational. I mean, no, they do a nice job. Absolutely, they do a nice job. It's just different. A little bit edgier dude is always. I mean, Johnny Lackey, he had that edge all the time, didn't he? So we've had that within our group. I love it. I love it. It makes my job easier in a good way, but I also think the young players benefit. This is a beneficial component to the younger players. It's just something that is not as readily found as maybe it had been. Even when I was in the minor leagues, we would run like A-ball, double-A, triple-A. We wanted to get a vet, like a guy that was a triple-A player, have him just place him on an A-ball club because you had a couple nice players there just to do these kind of things. So it's a concept that's been utilized for years. On a major league level, love it.
Maybe finding a way to get Schwarber a little more consistent.
Uh-huh.
Can you kind of put your finger on why this guy that performed in the 15 and 16 playoffs,
Right.
obviously, but he didn't perform in the clutch this past season? Can you put your finger
You know, I mean, I'm not often into mechanical panaceas, but I do believe with him it might be more mechanical than anything. So I know he's working on stuff right now. I'm looking forward to talking with him soon when I get back down to Tampa. Again, you know, still when you miss an entire year, it still has an impact. He missed an entire year, and he's still playing catch up regarding at bats. And then I consider all that stuff. So him, Happy's the same guy. Ian's the same way. We need to nurture methods, thought process at the plate, self-awareness. These are the kind of things that make you a good situational hitter. And these are the kind of things you want to get done with people like Schwarb's, because Schwarb's got all the ability in the world. Plus, who cares more than he does? So that needs to be patiently worked with, I believe. I believe it's mechanically, there's some mechanical things that may be tweaked a bit. And at the end of the day, to do simple better, to really reduce, and go up there with a simple plan. But I can say that with anybody. But I think that's where it's at. I think that's where it's at.
So you always have stayed in your lane when people ask you about teams spending money.
Yep.
You know, defer to people above you in those positions. But can you understand certain consternation from fan base or even media people saying, well, you have this window here. Why wouldn't you spend that extra money to go for the biggest free agent out there?
I mean, obviously I understand the conversation. Absolutely I do. But from our perspective, we feel like we have a lot of that stuff already there that we got to get more out of. It's my job to extract Schwarber's line drive, left center, runner on second base, 2 outs, RBI single. Ian Happ, infield back, runner on third base, infield back, 1 out, to be able to hit that ground ball to second base. I mean, we have it. I mean, these guys are that level of a player. They're gonna show that within the next couple of years. So from our perspective, and I totally agree with this, we have what we need. We do, of course, they're going to go out and do a couple little things, absolutely. But we got to extract from the group that's already there what we believe are their potentials. And I'm in agreement.
Hey, Joe,
Yeah.
you know, one of your coaches, Brandon Hyde,
Love him.
been interviewed
Yeah.
the Orioles job, and you were in a similar position in Tampa Bay when the Orioles were in that. What kind of advice would you give him or any manager taking over a situation like that?
Well, you got to, okay, I can tell you me, I'm going to bore you guys. The guys hear my crap all the time. I mean, everybody wants we're going to be tougher, we're going to run plays, whatever. You got to build relationships. You got to build it from the ground up, man. You got to get to know people first, and they got to get to know you. And then when you do that, you start trusting each other, and once you trust each other, I promise you, the ideas flow more freely. And then you're not, when you're constructively critical of one another, you're not pushing back. It starts right there. It's not complicated. And then after that, you have to have a specific plan. When you go out to practice, and I believe in simplicity, you go out there, you create a simple plan that's easy to follow and make sure that it's adhered to. And if there's anybody there that doesn't belong there, they need to be gone early, because they're the group that's going to drag you down, drag your program down. And when the program's being dragged down and they inflict these little wounds constantly, it's very difficult to get this thing to fly. So it's not complicated, and it's not sexy, the explanation, but you got to pay attention to those kind of things there, I believe, before you really get your program running, and then you start playing right. You get the right kind of dudes out there. We're talking about the guys in the clubhouse. It's this team camaraderie and this sameness or this oneness about how you go about your business. That's what matters.
Joe, how much do you know about Tulowitzki? Could he be a fit for some of the things you guys are looking for this offseason?
I don't know him that well. I mean, I knew, obviously, him and Longo were buds, and I know he's a dirtbag, which I love. I've never really, I think I've talked to him one time by the batting cage, so I don't know that answer. I don't even know health-wise where he's at either.
If he's got anything left.
Listen, he was fabulous, and I mean, when he was in Denver, I loved what I saw, but that's been a while ago. I know the health has been an issue lately. I know Longo likes him a lot, which is good enough for me, but that's hard for me to assess. I haven't seen him play in a bit.
With relievers generally and their year-to-year volatility, why do you think that happens, and what challenges does that present in trying to build a bullpen?
The volatility, I don't know, man. A lot of it, I think, just has to do with feel. Some might have to do with fatigue from the previous year, some may have to do with feel. Just purely, and that's hard to describe. Sometimes, I mean, if a guy's done well and there's more greater expectations, maybe that's an issue. So there's a lot of little things going on. I think primarily it would be two things. I would think would be the usage from the year before, and then how you match them up. I mean, you take a bullpen dude and you put him on the wrong guys all the time, he's not going to pitch that well. So it's a matter of how you set it up. Stay away from injury, not run him into the ground the year before, and how do you match him up? I think that plays big into continued success. Like last year, Dunsing did not have the same year he had the year before, but he was hurt a little bit last year, and it was just a totally different thing for him last year. Whereas Strope has been one of the most consistent relievers in the game. So I really pay attention to that. A lot of it, again, is conversational. But there's things that I believe in that you can't necessarily mathematically indicate. It is feel, it is injury, it is what's this guy thinking, the look in his eyeballs. Are you setting him up right? Yeah. I'm with you, man, and I was loud, and I totally believed it. I don't know. I really thought once he made the All-Star team, I thought that was going to jettison, he's going to take off, he's going to be this guy. But for whatever reason, the offense never came to fruition, and he became really difficult on himself. He became very hard on himself, and I think he dragged himself down a bit. We need to get him to continue to work on his defense to the point where he understands the catcher's responsibility regarding guiding his pitching staff. Physically at the plate, this guy, you saw him 2 years ago, man, that last part of the season was phenomenal. So I just think he got in a bad rut and he couldn't get out of it. So we got to talk to him soon, early on, and we got to get certain things straightened out with him mentally and how you approach this whole thing. And I like that he plays with his hair on fire, but you can't get too emotional either. So these are the kind of things that we'll talk to him about more specifically. But talent-wise, I meant that. I thought he was on the verge of becoming, or was the best catcher in the National League.
To follow up on that, not to get too technical.
Sure.
Like he always had different setups, so his leg was out at times.
Yeah. You mean behind the plate? Or?
Conventional
Yeah.
setup. I mean, is it important, at least this year, to have some semblance of consistency?
Sure. Always is. I mean, yes. He was searching. He's always searching for different methods, and we do it. When you have to search constantly, normally that means something's not quite right. So we do have to arrive at a moment where he's most comfortable with and is most functional. And sometimes you have to sacrifice comfort for function. Even in the batter's box, that was something I talked to hitters about. You have to sacrifice comfort for function, and then eventually that becomes more comfortable as you get into this originally an uncomfortable spot. So these are the kind of things, yes, all of these things we got to deal with him. The guy is incredible talent, strong, the way he throws, blocks the ball. There's so much good right there, man. So we got to, again, extract it out of him, start over a little bit this year, try to build into this method that he doesn't become so emotional that he gets in his own way and permits this prodigious talent to take over. Well, that's a great read, actually. Managing Millennials for Dummies. And I'm in the middle of that right now. Whoever, you always think this for dummies thing is like really rudimentary written. It's really well written and it's really well researched. And I'm learning about traditionalists, baby boomers, the Xers, and then millennials. I've really started to understand this a little bit better. I think it's important for me as a manager, obviously, whether anybody here agrees or disagrees with the generation and how they process things, doesn't matter, because that's the way it is. And if that's the way it is, just like my dad, that generation thought we were a bunch of babies. You know, the boomers, the traditionalists thought they're all soft. And then, you think the Xers are soft, the Xers think the millennials are soft. Doesn't matter. You have to figure out how to communicate and extract the best out of this group and make sure that you're always on the same page. So that's what I've been studying. I've been studying that a lot. I've been studying social media a lot this off season. Got a great book, Anti-Social Media, which I've always thought there's a strong component of that. These are the kind of things I think we as in this business in today's way, football, baseball, whatever. Again, regardless if you agree or not, doesn't matter. this is the way it is, and then you have to make your adjustments. And that's what I'm working on right now, is to understand better how I can better serve these guys.
You're reading something on millennials?
Managing Millennials for Dummies.
That wasn't a joke.
No.
We have to do one more because Ricky's going to slide in.
Joe,
Yeah.
3 years ago, you guys, at the winter meetings, you guys signed John Lester.
Yeah.
How big of a symbolic, I mean, we know he's a great pitcher and what he's done, but how much of it was symbolic of moving from what the Cubs were before to a greater thing, and maybe how a team can signal that with a big free agent?
Well, you have to have short-term victories before you can have this long term, or your reach your eventual goal. Our short-term victories were to sign John Lester originally, and what John brought to the table. The Dexter Fowler addition was very big for us at that time. The ascension of KB. There's so many short-term victories that we accumulated to eventually lead us to a 2016 World Series victory. So everybody wants to get everything done right now. It doesn't happen that way. You got to be somewhat patient, be dogged in regards to how you're going to go about this in your plan, but eventually understand if you do that, the reward's there. But everybody wants it right now, brother, and it just doesn't play that way. But John Lester was probably the cornerstone of that ascension.